as possible. Um, Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I apologize for my uninspiring background. As a warning, I've also been having some connectivity issues, so I have 3 hotspots ready to go, but I'm going to turn off my face video to conserve bandwidth. Also, during the meeting, you all are muted and your videos are off. This is just to, again, provide some space for bandwidth. And there won't be any time likely for questions, but there's a contact at the end. Happy to have more discussion. If we end up getting through things quickly, I can open it up, but that's kind of our format for tonight. Okay. So again, thank you very much for joining us tonight for our Wildlife Wednesday on the Central and Southwest Board of Game proposals. For those of you who are new to Alaska Wildlife Alliance, we are a nonprofit. We were funded by Alaskans in 1978, and we advocate for healthy ecosystems, scientifically and ethically managed to protect our wildlife for present and future generations. That's a mouthful. But we have 3 prominent programs that our members support. The first is helping wildlife adapt to climate change. That's our climate adaptation program. We also have a threatened and endangered species recovery program. So some of you might notice the Cook Inlet beluga whale. And then we also have our Voices for Wildlife program, and that's where we work to educate, mobilize, and get folks to decision-making spaces so that they can be a voice for wildlife. And before I start with the Board of Game, also my name is Nicole Schmitt, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alaska Wildlife Alliance, and really excited to kick off our 2024 Wildlife Wednesday series. So we're going to start with the basic question: what is the Board of Game? The Board of Game is a 7-member board, and each member has a 3-year term, but there are no term limits. Members are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the legislature, and there are no designated seats on Alaska's Board of Game. And this board is very, very important and often not very well known in Alaska, particularly for folks who are interested in wildlife. So the board decides many things. They decide the opened and closed seasons for hunting and trapping. They decide the areas for hunting and trapping. They determine bag limits, methods and means. And then they're also in charge of setting, quote, the policy and direction for the state's wildlife management. And then a lot of their time is also spent on allocative decisions, especially between user groups, prominently hunters. And so the Board of Game has an enormous amount of power. They essentially decide everything that is involved with hunting and trapping in Alaska, including what the population objectives for species across the state should be. And a lot of people, I run into this every day, think that Alaska Department of Fish and Game makes the management decisions. And that's just simply not the case. The decisions are made by the Board of Game, which again is a politically appointed board. And ADF&G is responsible for managing those decisions, managing based on those decisions. So why should you care? I presume that you're here because you do, which is great. Many folks are avid wildlife viewers in our membership, and the decisions that are made at the Board of Game impact that. The board has authority over a broad variety of species, pretty much every species in Alaska, with the exception of marine mammals. And so wherever you live in Alaska, the Board of Game will touch your life, whether you know it or not. And one example of that is setting trapping restrictions in multi-use areas. And so if you're a recreationalist and you're out skiing with your pet, you might be impacted by trapping regulations. The Board of Game was also the entity that was responsible for authorizing the Mulchatna Predator Control Program. This is where the state is authorized to shoot bears from the air, helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. There are a number of intensive management and predator control programs across the state. Those are all decided by this Board of Game. Again, just from southeast to the interior, and particularly in managing large ungulate populations like caribou, the Board of Game is essential to that process. Many hunters are involved with the Board of Game, particularly because of allocative issues, but subsistence is a huge priority for the board and for many Alaskans. And so if you're a hunter, you're likely interested in the Board of Game process. And finally, though there are many reasons why I want people to care about the Board of Game, but there are species that are in decline in Alaska. And so we need to make sure that there's a broad participation in this public process so that the future of these species can be determined on more of a collective basis rather than in a room where folks are making decisions that might really impact you and the species that you care about. And having a voice in that process is really important. Okay, so now you care very deeply, which I'm excited about. Let's look at the timeline that got us here and where we go forward. So every spring, the Board of Game requests proposals. And so on May 1st, the deadline for proposals to the Central and Southwest regions and the statewide regions were put forward to the public. Also in the spring is when the legislature votes to confirm the nominations to the Board of Game that are made by the governor. So in the spring, there's Board of Game confirmations, and then all of the proposals that will be deliberated for the following year are due, usually May 1st. Okay, a couple months go by. ADF&G works with all the proposals that are submitted to them. And by the fall, usually around September, they release the proposal book online. And that's about the time that advisory committees begin to meet to review and vote on these proposals. There are 84 advisory committees in the state, and these are local groups that act kind of like mini boards of game, and they review proposals and vote on those proposals. And their vote is carried to the Board of Game meeting and can have impact because it's a group of volunteers who are really interested in participating in this process. Anyone can join an advisory committee, and the elections vary by your region, but you can look on the Board of Game website if you're interested in getting on an advisory committee. All right, December 2024, here we are. The departments, this is ADF&G, Department of Law, Wildlife Troopers, publish most, if not all, of their comments on the proposals. And that's really helpful information because it provides more biological background. It gives you a sense of what the departments are feeling about proposals. And that can help inform your public comments. So the deadline this year for public comments for the summation on that now at the end of the night, but that's why we wanted to have this meeting so that folks could get an orientation to what proposals are on the table so that you could submit comments by the end of the month. And then finally, in January 10th through 17th next year, we will have the Central and Southwest Board of Game meeting in Wasilla. And this is where all of the proposals that we will go through tonight will be deliberated, they'll be voted on, and those that pass will be then put into regulation for the 2025 year. So it's a really important time, these Board of Game meetings. They usually last about a week. Public comment period is in the beginning, usually the first 2 to 3 days. Then public comment closes and the board begins deliberations. We also have another meeting. There's 2 meetings every year. So in March, we also have a big meeting, and that's statewide regulations. So those are proposals that would impact the entire state. We will have a meeting similar to this in February to talk about the statewide proposals. So for now, we'll just focus on Central and Southwest. And the reason that we talk about different regions is because the board deliberates proposals by region on a rotating basis. And so this is the long-term meeting schedule for the board. These game units might not mean that much to you right now, but we'll get into them in just a minute. But you can get a sense by the general region. So for example, next year will be the Southeast and South Central region, because that's the 2025-2026 cycle. And so the important thing to note about this is that the cycles go every 3 years. And so for Central and Southwest and the statewide regulations, we will be deliberating them this year, and then we won't see proposals for another 3 years. So if you are looking to make a change to wildlife regulations in a specific region, you have an opportunity every 3 years. So what are the ways to get involved? You can review the proposals and submit written or oral testimony. You can get involved with your local advisory committee, as I mentioned. You can engage with the Board of Game nomination and confirmation process in discussion with your locally elected officials. Or you could submit a proposal if you have an idea. And I know on the attendees, we have some people who have submitted proposals. So tonight, our goal is to help support you review proposals and submit written or oral testimony. Okay, when I had gone through the region, you might have seen game units, and game units are really, really important for orienting to what exactly we're talking about in these proposals. Game units are geographic areas that are referenced in hunting and trapping regulations. And so when we're looking at a regulation, we first look at where that regulation would apply, and they note that through game units. So this is a very busy map, but the important thing to take away for tonight is that we are in this Central and Southwest region. That's region 4, and that's denoted by these orange, the orange game units, kind of in the middle lower band. So those are the game units that we'll be talking. That's the region that is up for discussion. And within that, you'll see that there's smaller units within. So I'm going to keep maps up of the game units so you can orient to where you are if you're not very familiar with those shapes. So at this point in the evening, if you're interested in looking and commenting at proposals, I would recommend getting a piece of paper and writing down the proposal numbers as we go through them. We're going to go through a lot so that you can go back and review them. So I wanted to give you some time to do that. So while you're getting yourself ready, I pulled together a couple of numbers just so you can see what the proposals are looking at this year. So the graph on the left is the number of proposals in different areas of the region. So we had 20 proposals in the King Salmon area, 14 in Dillingham, 25 in Glen Allen, etc. The chart on the right is a little loose, but it's a tally of what species the proposals that were submitted would impact. So about 8% of the proposals that were submitted would impact wolves and coyotes, 12% roughly for sheep and goats, 20% for moose, etc. The little purple on the top for some reason doesn't show up, but that's kind of miscellaneous proposals that were not accounted for in those species groups. So just kind of an interesting snapshot of what folks are most interested in when they're submitting their proposals. Okay, so we have 84 proposals. I promise we're not going to go in detail through all 84, but we will move through many of them. So I'm going to start with the region-wide and multiple units. So this is kind of a subcategory of its own. There were 4 of these proposals, but I want to focus on 2 of them tonight. And also to say, there will be a QR code at the end where you can review a link to where you can see all the proposals in detail. So this is not the only opportunity you'll have to see these. Okay, so Proposal 2 would be to open 2 bear baiting seasons in units 9, 11, 13, portions of 14, 16, and 17. So essentially, this would allow a second baiting season in the fall. It would likely result in more black and brown bears killed in these units. It's worth noting that the department is already killing black and brown bears from portions of 17, 18, and 19 under intensive management programs. In ADF&G's comments, they provided no information on bear population surveys or estimates. And something to note about adding an additional bait season is that that could, in fact, user conflicts in high traffic areas, particularly in units 13 and 14. I think of those as sort of the North Anchorage, Palmer, Matsu area. And so each of these game units has their own baiting seasons and rules. The proposer is trying to make all of those game units uniform by adding the second bait season. Alaska Wildlife Alliance is opposed to the proposal because it's such a broad, sweeping regulation that would impact such a big area without the population data in each unit. It should be noted that Unit 9 does not allow baiting, so that would not actually be affected by this proposal. But it's still a lot of change over a wide area. And one other thing to note is that registered guides that use these areas would be able to establish up to 10 additional sites in their guide area in the fall. So this would be a pretty broad expansion of bear baiting. And for that reason, we are opposed. This is another proposal that AWA plans to oppose to allow the use of cellular cameras for the taking of black bear and brown bear over bait in those following units. And so a little bit of history on this proposal, or kind of how we got here, was that in 2017, Alaska Wildlife Troopers submitted a proposal to the board asking them to clarify what exactly is legal, because technology around cameras and bait stations is changing quickly. The board at that meeting chose to prohibit the use of cellular cameras for taking these animals at that statewide meeting, and they applied that regulation statewide. In those regulations, the board cited their decisions as pursuing fair chase and wanting to make sure that bait stations had fair chase. So currently, hunters are not allowed to use any camera or sensory device that has been airborne, controlled remotely, or communicates wirelessly when they're engaged in hunting or bear baiting. So if this proposal is adopted, bear baiters would be able to use game cameras that communicate wirelessly with their phones so that they could locate, identify, and monitor what's going on at their bait stations. And that's a pretty drastic change and would dig up a lot of discussion about whether or not that's fair chase. And then I think what else is interesting about this proposal is commonly what we see when there's a region-wide proposal like this. At the next round, someone will propose that that regulation be applied statewide. And so this is one of those instances where if this proposal passes, I would very much expect to see momentum for this to be applied in 3 years across the state. And that's something that we're not interested in having happen. So this is another proposal that we've flagged. Moving into the king salmon area, so this is units 9 and 10, and I think of this as Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. The peninsula is split into some subunits. We're going to be talking about that a lot later. And then unit 10 is basically the Aleutians. This is an extraordinarily busy slide, and I apologize, but I wanted to talk about, there are many bear proposals this year, and so I wanted to provide some context for Alaska Peninsula bear management. So historically, the season dates for all the brown bear hunts in all of Unit 9 were October 1st through October 21st, except for in 9B. In 2019, there was a concern about the demographics of bears that were killed, and so the board shortened the season in 9C, D, and E to October 7th to shorten it so it would be a week later. It'd be October 7th through October 21st and May 10th through May 25th. Since then, there have been proposals pretty much in every season that have tried to tinker or with those season dates. So in 2023, in 9C, the season was reverted back to that historic trend, October 1st through October 21st. And the spring season for residents was lengthened in a southern part of this game unit. So that's a lot to track, but essentially each of these game units is having potentially different starting and closing dates of their hunting. Per the current regulations, you can take one bear, a brown bear, every 4 regulatory year, and this is by permit. They have a biennial season management here, so the fall hunt is available in odd years, and the spring hunt is available on even years. So this is 2024. There was a spring hunt, but no fall hunt. In 2025, there's a fall hunt and no spring hunt. The seasons for these permits are as stated there. So you can see that there's differences between different subunits. And then below that, you'll see that there are additional resident only hunts. So this means if you're an Alaska resident, you might have access to additional hunting opportunities. It should be noted that the last one, RB 525, is really more of a community hunt. So it's difficult to get that if you're not locally based in king salmon. Okay, so in this year, there have been presented many ideas for how to manage brown bear hunting in Unit 9. I've grouped these into proposals that propose to lengthen the brown bear season and proposals that seek to shorten the season. So the most broad sweeping one is proposal 9. That would basically revert the entire Unit 9 to an October 1st through October 21st fall season. This would lengthen the seasons for 9D and 9E in the southern part and reduce the season in 9B. And then below that, you kind of have every combination of options to lengthen. It should be noted that anyone can submit a proposal to the Board of Game, and so often you'll see a couple proposals by different authors seeking some remedy. There are then also proposals to shorten the brown bear hunting seasons. One is to close 9A to non-resident hunters. Proposals 11 and 18 are fairly similar in their aim. They're to reduce the fall season by a week. The proposal 18 has some additional language for a draw permit hunt in the portion of 9C outside of Katmai National Preserve. But I wanted to go into detail a little bit about proposal 11 because I think it paints a picture about, you see these proposals on paper and they feel fairly sterile, but proposal 11 again is seeking to shorten the hunting season in 9C. So this is the area around Katmai National Park. And in the proposal, the author says the bears hunted on Moraine, Funnel, and Kulik rivers are known worldwide. Photographers, film crews, and other visitors pay thousands of dollars a day to view and photograph these bears. They're used to the presence of humans. Sows will nurse their cubs next to fishermen and wildlife viewers. Many of these bears are known individually by guides and visitors alike. Much of the visiting public is unaware that these bears will be hunted later in the season. And so in describing the reason why the author wanted to shorten the hunting season, they say several operators were still dropping off sports fishermen and wildlife viewers on rivers where bear hunting was actively taking place. Hunting camps and hunters were occupying critical habitat where bears were fishing, forcing others to avoid the areas. Bears were being shot right at the outlet of the Kulik River, and the Kulik River Lodge still has employees breaking down camp. There were several groups of sport fishermen on the river as well as wildlife viewers. And so this is the kind of like on the ground information that the board really appreciates about understanding why these season lengths matter both to users but also to wildlife. And so our takeaways from the Unit 9 bear situation, which I know was a rush, is that Unit 9 is really complicated and each subunit has different management focuses. The management focus around Katmai National Park, one of the most viewed bear areas in the world, is a little bit different from the remote areas down lower on the Alaska Peninsula. It's also worth noting, and this is a quote from ADF&G, that it's very difficult to obtain population and density estimates for brown bears. And so managers are often going off of the information that they receive from animals that have been killed. So the sex, the skull size, and the age, but there are no real broad population surveys happening in Unit 9 for bears. AWA in general supports proposals that reduce conflict and promote bear conservation. And in all of their comments, ADF&G has stated that they find no conservation concern with bear populations in Unit 9. It's one of the most closely managed bear populations in Alaska, but it's also a very keen focus for folks coming in out of state and Alaskans alike. I'm not going to go much into these, but there are other king salmon area proposals. There are 2 proposals concerning Arctic fox trapping seasons on the Pribilofs. You'll see that there's proposals about beaver, the wolverine season. Interestingly, proposal 23 seeks to lengthen the non-resident emperor goose hunting season. That's one that AWA opposes. And ADF&G submitted a proposal 24 to close the season for Alaska's hares in units 9 and 17. And this is one that we support due to low hare abundance. They cited a conservation concern. So these might be other proposals that you're interested in looking into and potentially commenting on outside of the bears. This map is a little pixelated. I was trying to blow it up, but we're moving north now into the Dillingham area. So this is Unit 17. And these are all the proposals for Unit 17. Again, there will be a document at the end so you can review these at your leisure, but I'm going to focus on those that are in bold. And it's really important to note that Unit 17 is where the Mulchatna Predator Control Program is currently underway. This is where the state has been shooting brown bears and black bears and wolves from helicopters. The past 2 years, the program is expected to continue until 2028. We have a lot of information about this program. We continually update the page that's linked here. It's also on the homepage of our website, but I encourage you to review that. But Unit 17 and its neighbor 18 are areas of the Predator Control Program. So I'm going to, oh, there we go. Talk a little bit about proposals that have to do with harvest objectives. So this is a little bit different than proposals that have, dealing with an open and closed season. These proposals are kind of sneaky because they're not necessarily the most interesting to folks who are out in, your general season closure or bag limit. They really have to do with setting the direction of management for a particular species. So the Board of Game has the authority to establish what we call population objectives and harvest objectives. So the population objective is what the ADF&G is trying to get to in terms of how many caribou are in an area or in a herd. The harvest objective is how many of those animals are harvested or hunted each year, hunted or trapped. And so Proposal 28 seeks to reduce the population and harvest objectives for moose in 17B. The number in bold is what the proposer would like to change the harvest objective to. The bracket is the current harvest or population objective. And then below is the harvest objective. So a 100 to 250 is the harvest objective that they're seeking. The current harvest objective is 200 to 400. So let's look at this visually.
Can't hear you, Nikki. You've gone out. Stand by. Hopefully she comes back. Okay, everybody, I guess I'm the host for the moment. There must be a glitch with the communications here. So I am Carol Damberg. I'm the board
I'm back.
president for AWA. And I am very happy to see folks attending this meeting. I think was going very well. Hopefully Nikki will get back to us here in a minute. Oh, maybe she's back.
Okay. I
Hey,
am.
Nikki,
I'm
you
sorry
back?
about that. I'm back.
You're
I'm
back.
sorry.
Okay.
It just
I was
kicked me
giving an
out.
infomercial. I'm sure.
Great. Thank you, Carol. I apologize for that. I'm now on hotspot number 2, so hopefully this works. As I was saying, as you can see, we've basically only reached that harvest objective twice, in the past almost 40 years. And so what this proposal is seeking is to make the harvest objective and the population objective more realistic. Let's see if I can, there we go. And so below you can see the population estimates, which again, the original population objective was about 5,000 to 6,000, but the total population for moose in this area has not really exceeded 3,000. And so this is really important because in guiding the direction for what exactly we're managing towards, it makes the management more realistic, and it also can help prevent misguided intensive management and predator control. Because if you have population objectives and harvest objectives that are not possible, either because of environmental conditions or disease or overhunting or predators or a big variety of variables, uh, if you're not meeting the population or harvest objective, that can be a reason for the agency or the department to enact intensive management. But this suggests that perhaps we were trying to manage to a level that was unrealistic. And so keeping these numbers within the range of possibility is really important. And for that reason, we support that proposal. And there's a very similar proposal, 29, to asking, and this one is interesting, and I think a really notable and well-written proposal, is the proposers asking the Board of Game to review the population and harvest objectives for the Mulchatna caribou herd. They did not put in numbers that they would like to see, but they're asking the board to revisit their population objective because, as you can see again on this graph, they're just not making it. In fact, harvest has been essentially zero because the herd has declined so much, and we're far below the lower population objective. There are other proposals that are concerned with Mulchatna caribou harvest. Proposal 30 seeks a 3-year moratorium on caribou hunting in the subunits that are considered the Mulchatna caribou herd range. Proposal 31 seeks to close the resident caribou seasons again in those areas so that the Mulchatna herd can recover, and they seek that closure until populations have met or exceeded the 30,000 threshold to harvest. And so we support these proposals, and I think it's worth noting that 30,000 threshold that is noted in proposal 31, we look back, that's that lower line of the population objective. That might not be possible in the near term. That's something that I think biologists, everyone would love an answer to, particularly the communities out there that really depend on this herd. And so, that 30,000 number might be something that could be impacted by previous proposals, but the intention is to essentially have a moratorium on hunting Mulchatna caribou until they recover. A couple of notes in support of this proposal from AWA's end is that this would align the regulations across the range of Mulchatna caribou herd. And that's because earlier this year in January, the board approved a 4-year moratorium on Mulchatna caribou across Unit 18, which is a neighbor of this game unit, and it has the same is part of the habitat of the Mulchatna caribou herd. ADF and G has expressed that they plan to continue keeping the hunt closed because it wouldn't be sustainable to open it. And so having a moratorium would create some clarity on that. And just to emphasize, it's been closed by emergency order for the last 3 years. And then again, this is the area where that Multnomah program, predator control program, has been approved through 2028. And in ADF&G's comments, they say, quote, hunting should be avoided while the department conducts a lethal predator removal program. A couple other Dillingham area proposals. Proposal 32 would allow the year-round killing of brown bear in Unit 17, and that would be 2 bears per year. We oppose this. We believe every species needs a rest, and we do not support no closed seasons. Proposals 33 and 34 would allow same-day airborne killing of brown bears, so that's 33 and 34, and wolves, which is just proposal 34 in Unit 17. We oppose both of these for ethical reasons and because the take of wolves in Unit 17 by same-day airborne, excuse the typo, is prohibited by statute. And then proposals 35 and 36 seek to shorten the trapping season in 9 and 17, as well as the hunting season. And this is essentially to reduce hunting pressure on wolverines as they go into the denning period. And so when the season was extended into May 31st, the proposer noted that it put pressure on wolverines at a really special time of their year. And so they're seeking to shorten that back to February 29th, and that is both proposals that we support. Okay, we're moving in a very pixelated and blurry way, but we're moving east to Glen Allen. So this is units 11 and 13. I'll have a better map coming up. There we go. So you can see Unit 13 is kind of a funky shape. It extends to the border of Denali National Park. It encompasses Denali State Park, and then goes all the way east to essentially border Wrangell, St. Elias. So and kind of is sandwiched in between, or I'm sorry, just outside of the highly populated areas in Unit 14. So again, these are those kind of unsexy but extremely important harvest and population objective proposals. This proposal 39 concerns moose and 13B. Again, I shared the graphs similar to those that we had prior, where you'll see the low objective in the dashed line, high objective in the high line. And you can just basically see, for example, the chart on the right denoting moose harvest is that it hasn't been since 1995, with the exception of 1 year, that we've actually made the low end of the moose harvest objective. And so again, just setting a management direction that is more viable is really helpful. It's also worth noting that there is an active predator control program in Unit 13. And so if the department is not charged with managing to unrealistic population objectives, they might not have as much pressure to implement predator control. This is an interesting case where there are 2 proposals asking for kind of opposite things. Proposal 40, so now we've moved to 13C, is seeking to change the population objective for moose. They want to raise the population objective for moose. Whereas proposal 41, which is submitted by ADF&G, would like to reduce the harvest objective for moose. So one is concerning the population objective, the second is about the harvest objective. So it's just, this is a really, I wanted to point this out as an interesting case, and how all of these management decisions are made, sometimes piecemeal, in that one proposal addresses one, another addresses another. And we're currently reviewing these proposals for AWA's position. Moving into 13E, so again, a different subunit. This is, I think, the final one to reduce the harvest objectives. Again, you can see that in 1988, we got close to the harvest objective, but have been pretty far from it ever since. And so moving this into something more realistic would likely be better for everyone. There are many moose proposals in Unit 13. I strongly encourage you to review those if this is an area that you have close ties to or have an interest in. I'm not going to go into all of those because we are limited in time. But Unit 13 is probably most famous for the Nalchina caribou herd. And so let me just move my toolbar here. Proposal 48 is to modify the intensive management plan in Unit 13. So that intensive management plan is supposedly for the benefit of moose. And this proposal seeks to add it so that the intensive management plan would also include conditions to improve the Nalchina caribou herd. And then proposal 49 would be to close caribou hunting for 6 years for the Nalchina herd until it reaches the midpoint of its management objective. And again, this is where it's really important to know where our management objectives are and if they're realistic. And it encompasses a number of game units where the Nalchina caribou are present. Unit 13 also has many sheep and goat proposals. I really wish we had time to go through all these because sheep are really important and they deserve a lot of attention right now because of their the susceptibility that they have to climate change and some of the issues that they're facing. There could be a whole meeting on the sheep proposals. So if you are interested in sheep, I highly encourage you and goat to review these proposals in the future. And then we have a couple more concerning bears and wolves, and this is in Unit 13 and 11. Proposal 15, or I'm sorry, 57 seeks to double basically the bag limit for brown bear in Unit 13. We oppose this proposal. Currently this season, so in Denali, they have 2 seasons. One is specific to Denali State Park, and the rest is for Unit 13 remainder. So in Denali State Park, the season is August 10th through June 15th. In 13 remainder, there is no closed season. So we are awaiting ADF&G's biological estimates, but this is likely a proposal that we will oppose. Proposal 58 would reduce the minimum wolf population in Unit 13 intensive management plan. So currently that intensive management plan that I mentioned, again, supposedly for the benefit of moose, said that they want to reduce the number of wolves to be 130 wolves in Unit 13. And this proposal seeks to reduce that even further to only have 100 wolves in all of Unit 13. I pulled the stats and Unit 13 is about 22,000 square miles. So having 100 wolves in 22,000 square miles seems awfully low. The current spring wolf population is around 300, and that's after a couple years of intensive management on and off. That program kind of turns on and off. And as I said, the current intensive management objective for wolves is between 135 and 165. And that is significantly lower than the population has historically been, and so we oppose that proposal. And then proposals 59 and 60 seeks to lengthen the wolf and coyote trapping seasons into late April. And this is, essentially to do sort of local predator control because the furs are not of good quality. It's not really trapping for the fur, it's mostly trapping to reduce the number of wolves. So for that reason, we're opposed. And then ptarmigan, it's kind of nice to get a break from those species we talked about and talk about some birds. Proposal 61 seeks to change the start date of the season to basically move it out later into August. This is because they were noticing that the springs start to shift. The ptarmigan season was opening when chicks were still getting their bearings and they cited a conservation concern. There's a proposal to extend the spring hunting season, and then proposal 63 is interesting to require a registration permit to hunt ptarmigan in 13B and 13E. We will be supporting that proposal. Okay, this is our last area, the Palmer area. For many folks living in Anchorage or Matsu, this is your backyard. So this is units 14A, 14B, and 16. Palmer has a lot of moose proposals. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these, mostly because they're allocative between different hunting interests, archery only. There's antlerless proposals as well. So I encourage you to review those if this is of interest. There are a lot of proposals about bears, and this is where I wanted to spend some time. Proposal 70 seeks to extend the hunting season for bears, and change it from currently ends on May 31st. They seek to end it on June 15th. This would add 15 days to the end of the current bear season, and including at bear bait stations. And ADF&G says it's expected to result in an increased harvest of brown bears. Proposal 71 would extend it as well. This would be only for 14B by 30 days to end on June 30th. This would add 30 days to the brown bear seasons and would allow the take of brown bears at black bear bait stations. Proposal 72 is to eliminate the harvest ticket requirement for hunting black bears. We oppose this because the harvest tickets are free and they provide ADF&G with really important information so that we can understand what's going on with bears. It's worth noting, again, this is an area where there have not been bear surveys. They're very difficult to survey. And so the information that ADF&G is using to estimate bear populations is really from harvest. And that's where harvest tickets are just a good way to give us, any information. We don't have much. Proposal 76 seeks to allow the take of brown bears in Unit 16 via same-day airborne. We strongly oppose this. We think this would have a bigger impact in the spring because the snow would allow animals to be tracked easier from the air and provides more locations to land in aircraft. So it would likely open up more bear hunting in the spring. And then proposal 77, again, this is very close to actually that first proposal, seeking to add 15 days to the end of the brown bear season. But there's one in particular that I really want you to focus on, and that's proposal 75. This proposal seeks for ADF&G to have the authority to remove wolves, brown bears, and black bears from the Unit 16 intensive management plan. And so essentially for those who have been following Mulchatna, this would be a Mulchatna predator control program just across Cook Inlet in all of Unit 16, which is noted on that map. And so this would border Denali National Park, Denali National Preserve. It would also border Lake Clark National Park and Preserve. And it's interesting because this would allow ADF&G again to kill both bears, brown and black, and wolves through aircraft, including helicopters, in order to achieve their reduction goals. So let's talk about what the reduction goals are. Their removal objectives in this plan are to remove 73 to 80% of the wolves in Unit 16, and they seek a minimum population of 35 wolves. So the only time they would stop is if there were 35 wolves or less. They also seek to kill 60 to 80% of the bears, of the black bears, with a minimum population of 700, and then remove 60% of the brown bears. So that would mean that that minimum population would be 375 brown bears for this whole area. And again, it's just worth noting how large an area this is. So this is one I really want to flag for folks. Proposal 75. Keep track of it. There are also a number of trapping proposals in the Palmer area. And so proposal 79 seeks to extend the wolf trapping season by 30 days. Again, this would end in late April. There's currently no limit on the number of wolves that can be trapped in 14A. And so given that there's no limit, in particular, we also want to avoid trapping into the breeding season. And so we will be opposing that proposal. Proposal 80 is concerning beavers. And this is again Unit 16 across Cook Inlet. We support this. This was submitted by the Mount Yenlo Advisory Committee, and they're concerned of potential beaver population decline, and they want folks to seal beavers so that ADF&G can get more information about beavers and the harvest that's going on. Proposal 81 would require traps and snares to be set within 2 miles of publicly maintained roads in Unit 14A, that they be checked at least every 36 hours. And this is to reduce conflict with recreationalists. AWA supports that proposal. Trap check requirements are common in other states, and we actually have trap check requirements on federal lands. For example, the Kenai National Wildlife Refuge has a trap check requirement. And so this is not unheard of, and particularly in an area that sees a lot of recreation. AWA is generally in support of trap check requirements that are reasonable. And then proposal 82, this one's close to my heart because AWA submitted it. This is to establish 50-yard trap setbacks along specific trails in Unit 14. And we originally put in this proposal in 2022, had a negotiation with the Alaska Trappers Association, resubmitted it, and the board rejected it. So we're trying again. And there will be a lot more information available about this on our website, especially the trails that we're seeking to protect. But this would provide safe 50-yard buffer areas for some trails up by Matsu Palmer area. So proposal 82. And that reminded me that if you're not aware of it already, please check out our Map the Trap portal. This is on our website at akwildlife.org/safe trails. There's no entity in Alaska that tracks trap encounters. And so if you, and we get calls all the time from folks who've had a pet caught or killed in a trap. And so before you go out, before you ski with your dog, which I do almost every day, you can go to this website and you'll see an interactive map that has all the GPS points where folks have seen traps on trails. If you're out and about and you see a trap on a trail and you'd like to report it, you can do it from your phone. It's very easy and helps get us information about where trap conflicts are taking place and where they're not. And will also help, fellow recreationalists avoid areas with traps. And so please check it out. It's free, and share with other folks who are out and about. Okay, a few other Palmer area proposals, and then we're going to wrap it up. Proposal 78 seeks to allow the same-day airborne take of wolves in Unit 16. Again, this is the area where they propose that the state be allowed to shoot bears and wolves from helicopters. We oppose this mostly because the board doesn't have the authority to allow what the author is requesting due to statute. And then proposal 83 and 84 would extend the spring hunting season for ptarmigan, and I'm sorry that has a wolf instead of a ptarmigan. We oppose this. The current season for ptarmigan has been in place for over 30 years. And this would likely reduce the breeding densities, particularly of ptarmigan, particularly in those areas close to roads and trail systems. And this is a really highly populated area, at least on the 14 side. And basically by mid-April, ptarmigan have established and are defending their breeding territories. And so we want to keep this season out of their way while they're getting themselves settled. And the ADF&G also noted that the increasing the amount of late season harvest would likely result in localized depletion, particularly, again, at sites near trails and roads. So for the sake of the ptarmigan, we oppose both of those proposals. Okay. Whoa, what a whirlwind. That was a lot. And I think we might have some time for questions, but I want to end this with some opportunities for next steps. So if you can get out your phone, you can scan the QR code. That will link you to the meeting information site where you can review the proposals, all of the proposals that I just flew through. You can also see ADF&G's comments. They have not commented on all of the proposals, but they are adding more and more every day, so you can keep checking up on that. So that's the best place to review any information that's available about the proposals we just talked about. The next thing you can do is submit your comments by December 27th. That green QR code will take you there. And it's a really easy to use form. It gives you the directions or instructions for how to submit comments. It allows you to comment on specific proposals. And so when I go to comment, I have my proposal numbers and I have my justification for why I comment that way. And I think it's really important to use your personal experience as folks out in Alaska and care about wildlife. Your perspective is just as valid as anyone else in the room. So the board seems to be really responsive to listening to folks who have on the ground experience in these areas and with these species. And then the third is that you can attend, watch, or listen to the Board of Game meeting. Again, it's in January 10th through 17th in Wasilla. There on the Board of Game website, there will be a YouTube video where you can watch it, you can listen to it, or you can attend. If you are interested in giving oral testimony, you can let me know. Here's my email and phone, and I'm happy to support, answer any questions or be there in the room too. Testifying in front of a group of strangers can be really nerve-wracking, so it's nice to know some other folks there. So please reach out if you plan to attend or you're interested in learning more about the Board of Game process. My email is there. You can also give us a call and visit our website. I will also note that all of this information I gave tonight is going to be turned into a blog that will be available on our website. And we will also be sending an action alert to everyone who's on our newsletter and on our social media, outlining these proposals so that you can get another kind of quick snapshot to support your review of the proposals. So please follow us on Instagram or Facebook if you use those platforms, or join our newsletter. It's free and we promise to not inundate you with information or requests. And lastly, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the AWA members who make this work possible. We're a small nonprofit, and we really rely on the generosity and interest of local folks to support us and to comb through these proposals and do this kind of research and share this information. So thank you so much. I know many of you are on this call. With that, I think that we probably don't have that much time for questions, given that we have a minute left, but please email me again, Nicole at akwildlife.org if you have any questions or would like to chat. And then we will also be posting this recording on our website so you can access it later. With that, Carol, did you have anything that you wanted to add? Putting you on the spot here.
No, Nikki, excellent presentation. Thank you so much. There's a lot on the plate here. I implore all of you who are on this call to spread the word about this. We need the voices. We need voices to be heard. It doesn't have to be on all of them. Maybe you pick 2 or 3 of them that you feel passionate about. But, tell your friends why they need to get engaged with this, because it's more like what Nikki said. It's more than just about hunting and trapping. This is about wildlife management in Alaska. And everybody should be caring about what's going on here. And there are some pretty tough proposals that were just described to us. And this has been going on for a while. So that's my thoughts. Thank you for being members. Thank you for attending this call. we do need your voices and we need you to spread the word, because now more than ever, I think we really need the passion to come out and be heard. Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah, and thank you, Carol, board president. All right, all well, we'll have a prompt ending. Thank you so much, and please reach out with any further questions. And we'll see you next month for hopefully a more uplifting Wildlife Wednesday. Thanks.